Good afternoon. My name is Dipang, and first of all, I would like to thank the department for giving me the opportunity to present my research through this seminar series. And the topic of my research and this seminar is post-hurricane damage and property loss estimation. So before I go ahead, and I would like to tell you something about me. So my name is Dipang, and I started my PhD in fall 2021. And during my undergrad, I completed my undergrad last year. And during my undergrad, I did a few internships in IITs. And during my internship, I worked on machine learning and digital image processing application in civil engineering. And hence my research area is a bit interdisciplinary. So I work in civil engineering as well as in machine learning applications. So hence, and later I joined SAIL lab. SAIL stands for Structural and Artificial Intelligence Lab. And that's what I do. And my research interests are and deep learning application in structural health monitoring and structural engineering in broad terms. So this is the basic outline of the presentation. I'll talk about motivation and aim of the project, and then a little bit talk about project details. And later in the slides, I'll talk about how I built the data set and the challenges I faced. And then while concluding, I'll talk a little bit about machine learning and how semi-supervised techniques can be employed in real life. And that's it. So let's see talk about the motivation of this project. So once a disaster strikes, it takes about 2 to 4 weeks for the preliminary inspections. These inspections are done by local government and volunteers. And the purpose of this the purpose of these inspection is to identify the priority regions which are need to be inspected in detail. So next is the detailed inspection. This is done by FEMA. FEMA is basically Federal Emergency Management Agency. It's a government agency, and the purpose of detailed inspection is to find the eligibility of disposal of federal funds, federal aids for property damage. And this timeline is basically for the Hurricane Harvey, which took around 6 months. So as you can see, like it's taking too much time for inspection. So this is an example. So just for Hurricane Harvey, there were around 900,000 applications, and for Hurricane Maria, it was around 3.7 million applications. And there is a single agency called FEMA, and it becomes a very overwhelming for FEMA to process through all these applications. So, and as you can see in this picture, like they are still waiting for the FEMA inspection after, and it takes around 6 months. So this is the basic motivation for this project. And in this image, I'm showing you the stats about after the FEMA inspection. So 45% were approved and around 22% were not approved. So even if you apply for it, there is 75% chances that you'll get approved, but still 25% chances you will not get approved. And 33% you'll not even get inspected. So even if after waiting for 6 months, it's very difficult for house owners and renters. So just to summarize, so the problem is with the current practices is like it's a door-to-door inspection, and it's very time-consuming and laborious. Also, it has safety issues. And also, as you can see in the stats, it tends to unfairly penalize low-income households because how FEMA distributes the aid, they set a certain threshold. And if the damage amount crosses that threshold, then only they will pay you the aid. So it's a bit unfair for low-income people. So what is the solution to it? The solution is automation of damage assessment, so that we can quickly do the inspection process and it can go ahead and process all these huge amount of applications. So here are a few recent papers who have worked on this. So this is about rapid inspection using nether images. Nether images are the images which are taken from the top. So if you see Google Maps, so if you don't, I'm not talking about the street views. If you take it from the top, you will see only the rooftops. These are nether images. So in the first paper, they are using satellite images. In the second paper, the second images are pretty clear, but you cannot see the sides of the buildings. So, so there are problems with satellite images, like they only contain the rooftops, and they do not give you the proper information about the building damage, because the doors, the walls, and the windows are also likely to get damaged, and you'll get all information only about the rooftops. And the second is using the drone, but still using drones, it's very time consuming. It takes time to inspect over an area. And if it's a hurricane and hitting a large area, this is again going to take a lot of time. So this is also not going to solve our problem. So what is our proposal? So our proposal is basically to use multi-temporal ultra high resolution images. So that, which is basically MTUHR. So we use aircrafts to take photos from different sides and during different interval of time. So we have pre-hurricane and post-hurricane, and also we cover images from different orientations. So we have images from north, east, west, and south, and as well as nether images. And later, after getting those images, we can use deep learning techniques to estimate the damage amount. And further after getting damage estimate, which will be easier to give or build a framework which will give you a valuable insight about equitable resource allocation that will solve the third purpose of where people were getting unfairly penalized. So towards this project, and here are specific aims. So the first one is like deep learning based reliable damage assessment from temporal ultra high resolution images. Temporal basically means time dependent. So we have pre and post images. And next, so basically it's divided into two subparts. The first one is building the data set, and second one is using some novel deep learning architecture to get the damage state and for the damage assessment. All right. So this is a very basic flow chart. First part was literature review of what people have done so far and what they've used. They've been using nether images and satellite images so far. And next, the step will be to collect the hurricane event data. So we already have different hurricanes, Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Harvey, and they're different. And then next will be building the data set, and then model training, and then evaluation. So for the building data set, I'll just give you an overview, like from where we are getting our data set. The first one is design safe. The second is vexel imaging, GMAPs, and then open addresses. I'll go through all of them one by one. The first one is design safe. So design safe is a cyber infrastructure component of a website called Nehri. It contains the manually inspected details of hurricanes. So for instance, you can see in this CSV file, we have these, all the rows correspond to a single location. It's a home, and those columns are basically what percentage of damage is being recorded for roof, for their wall, and their windows. So we have details, and these are manually inspected and collected by researchers. So it's all available on this website. So for instance, we have collected for Hurricane Harvey, Michael, and Laura, and we have the details about what percentage of damage was done to these specific homes. Next, there is something called building damage classification. So the classification is like a classification is in 5 different categories. So grade 1, grade 2 to grade 5. Some people use from grade 0 to grade 4, still total number of 5, where the larger number means total destruction, and the lower number basically means like it's slightly damaged or undamaged. Here's an example to give you an example. So this is how damage state 1, 2, 3, and 4 may look like. As you can see in the 4th, it's a total destruction, and the image 1, it's slightly damaged, just the rooftop. So these are just rooftops. We have images from sides as well. I'll go through them in my further slides. Next source of the data set was Vexel Imaging API. So Vexel Imaging API is a company which has partnership with SAIL. So these people use their drones, or I would say aircrafts, to take images from time to time. So we have pre and post images, and these are really high resolution, and we can collect using a very versatile API to extract those images, and as well as from multiple views. So in Vexel images, they have different 5 categories. As you can see, the bottom 2 are gray sky. Gray sky basically means when during the disaster time, whenever there is hurricane, and blue sky is when we do not have a hurricane. So we can extract pre and post images. So just to summarize, so using the Design Safe website, and we have another FEMA and then Vexel Imaging API and Google Maps API. So I've talked about these sources. So we'll be getting the ground truth, which is collected by the researchers from the Design Safe website, and then damage amount from FEMA, which collects, and after the whole inspection, they give you the amount that this amount of aid you should get after getting affected. And then using Vexel Imaging and Google Maps, I'll be extracting images. So, but it looks pretty straightforward to get all, but there were a few challenges using in extracting images. The first one was getting building footprints. So if you want to extract an image from a website, you need building blocks, or you can say footprints of the building. So to extract those footprints, if we have a Google API in which you can input a street address. Let's say for your home, you have a street address. And if you give that input, it can give you the coordinates of building. So you get a bounding box. So here you can see we have the northeast point and the southeast point, so that we can make a bounding box out of it. And then you can extract. As you can see in this image, it's not quite visible, but it's the same image using those Google API and Vexel Imaging. The second problem was multi-temporal images. So as I told you, like in Vexel Imaging, they take images from time to time. So we have multiple images for a specific building. So so as you can see in this picture, we have 66 images from 2018 event and another hurricane event in 2021, or it might not be a hurricane event, but still they took the images. It has 5 images. So which image we should select? It depends on so I use the hurricane date to get those images. Next was to multiple rooftops in a single image. As you can see in the image in the right, there are 2 buildings, and for a machine learning model to train, we'll be inputting a single image for it. So we need to identify which one has 2 buildings, and we need to separate them out. So we are using mask RCNN. So I'll talk about these architectures in the slide, but just to show you an example, this is how it looks. So it can identify the different rooftops, and we can extract it using this mask RCNN. Mask RCNN is a state-of-the-art architecture for this segmentation and object detection tasks. Next, I'll show some of the sample videos. I was talking about the images from different sites. As you can see, this particular building, we have the images from different orientation. So it's from east, west, north, and south. So next is about high resolution images, and you can see these are pretty high resolution images. And next we have post and pre-hurricane. So the right one is pre-hurricane, and the post-hurricane is in the left side. So this is how we finally collected and building the benchmark data set process goes. So after collecting, this is the stats of what we have collected so far. So I talked about different damage states from 0 to 4, and we have these total values are the total number of images we have. So we collected around 1,600 images for different states. So this was the first part of my presentation. Next, I'll be talking about machine learning and how we'll be going to implement. So just to give you an idea how machine learning and neural networks can be employed and what is it. So as per Wikipedia, machine learning is the study of computer algorithms that can improve automatically through experience and by the use of data. So machine learning is a very broad topic, and in this we have multiple algorithms, and each algorithms basically works on same principle that we need to see the data set and improve the accuracy of the model. So, and neural network is one of them. So as the name suggests, neural networks. So it has been inspired by neurons we have in our brain. So this red dots are the inputs which we take through dendrites, and then we have a cell body which process something, and then it will transfer through the branch. I guess it's called axons. So, and this axons will be connected to another dendrites. So it's a big connection from one point to other point, and the whole cell body will do the process. So, and a neural network works similarly. So as you can see, we have input dog image, and we have inputs, and then we have some hidden layers which can be represented by the bunch of neurons, which will process something and then we'll get an output. So it's predicting like it's a dog. So it's like I can give you an example. Say if you are a newly born kid, you have never seen a cat, so you will not recognize it. But if you see it the second time, you'll see I have seen that this data and I've stored it in my brains and neurons, so I know this is a cat. So it's like that only. So more the data you have, the better the accuracy you will have. So this is an example mathematical intuition. So this is a basic regression problem. So as this is basically number of iteration as we increase, we try to decrease the error. So this is the basic intuition behind machine learning and neural networks. So now there is different branches and this is subdivided: artificial intelligence subdivided into machine learning, deep learning, and whatnot. So the basic difference between machine learning and deep learning is that like in machine learning, we'll do the feature extraction. For example, in this car, if we input a car, so we know like we have 4 wheels, we have headlights, we have this width, length, or height, and then we'll input these details after extracting the features of a car to a model, which is a neural network classification, and then we'll get output. So we still, as a human, we have to do something. But in deep learning, we can input, and the feature extraction and classification, both the tasks are done by a neural network. So it's a bit complex, and we need more data for a deep learning model to train, and then it can predict whether it's a car or not a car. Next, as you saw, the number of images were pretty low. It was around just 1600 images, and among 5 categories with 1600 images, it's a bit difficult for a deep learning model to train. As you can see in the right side, so older learning algorithms basically mean machine learning, which do not use the feature extraction part. They cannot utilize those data. Even if we have too much of data set, we cannot use it, but using deep learning algorithms, we can utilize it. And so we need more data so that we can employ it on a deep learning method. So the challenges with small data set is the restriction of number of categories. If we have fewer data set, either we can do it in a binary classification. So we just have 2 categories, either it's a undamaged building or it's a damaged building. But we have here 5 different categories. The next problem is like it's prone to overfitting, and also small data set require models of low complexity. Next, in the types of learning, we have different types of learning: supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised, and reinforced. So supervised is basically where you provide all the data, all the labeled data, and unsupervised is basically where you provide just the data. You do not provide anything, any label to it. Label data basically means like if you're giving an image of a cat, you'll have to tell the model that it's a cat. Then it's a supervised. If you're just giving out an image and find whatever it is, it's an unsupervised. So we have the data set, but there's something called semi-supervised learning, which is halfway between supervised and unsupervised learning, because we have 1600 images, labeled images. We can extract different unlabeled images. So the requirement for semi-supervised learning is it requires large number of unlabeled data set and relatively few labeled training points. Here's an example comparison of the supervised method with the unsupervised semi-supervised techniques. As you can see, with just around 400 labels, it was able to get close to the accuracy of able to match the accuracy of a supervised model. So these models are pretty powerful, and this is also an example of CIVE 10 dataset. So CIVE 10 dataset basically have 10 different categories, and total number of images in CIVE is around 60,000 images. So with just 40 labels, it was able to get an error rate of 13.81. And this is error. In the previous, it was accuracy. So 40 labels basically means 4 images per label. So it was just, it's like you're just giving 4 images per label and asking to train the model on the rest of the 60,000 images. So it's next, these are the references I've used for these figures. So now the next task is to extract the unlabeled dataset. So to extract, we are using open source website called Open Addresses. Open Addresses is basically a collection of addresses and parcel and building footprints. So if you get if you give a affected area, it will give you all the street addresses in that region. And if that region has been affected, they'll have some undamaged and some damaged buildings. So you can use those addresses with Google API and Vexel imaging. So, and we can extract. So for instance, I used Aransas County. It has around 10,000 inputs. So just for a single county, I was able to get 10,000 images. So, so this is how we are getting the large amount of unlabeled data set. Next, so now you know, like we have the unlabeled data set, we have labeled data set, and we know what machine learning and semi-supervised learning techniques mean. So I'll be discussing about two semi-supervised algorithms. So the first one is fixed match, which is developed by Google Research, and the second one is self match, which was developed by Samsung SDS. So basic approach about for fixed match is like we create an augmented version of unlabeled images and then supervised model predict those images. So as you can see, and since it's the same image, the predicted label should be same for this. So we have an unlabeled image of a cat, and then we do augmentation. So the first one is weakly augmented, and the second one is strongly augmented, as you can see from the image. Since it's the same image, if we predicting the weakly augmented as a cat, so the strongly augmented should also be cat. And if the supervised model is predicting as a dog, so this is making an error, and we can use this error to incorporate in our loss function to increase the accuracy of our model. So this is a basic approach. So this is a fixed match pipeline. So first we use a label image to train a model, and then using those labeled images, after training the model, we use those models on unlabeled data set. And as I showed in previous slide, we have weakly augmented and strongly augmented image. And after then the supervised model tries to predict on weakly augmented. And if this prediction crosses a certain threshold, it will be assigned a pseudo label. So as you can see in this image, it's an image of a horse and weakly augmented. It's pretty straightforward to identify it's a horse. So model was able to predict as a horse, and then we can assign it to a unlabeled data set. So this is how we are converting our unlabeled data set to a labeled data set. And then in the strongly augmented, we again pass the image to our model, and then we call it for a prediction. If it's same prediction, then we will increase our loss, and if it's not, then we will improve the accuracy of the model. Next is self-match. So self-match is another technique, one of the semi-supervised technique. This was developed by Samsung. It's pretty strong as compared to fixed match. It's basically a upgraded version of fixed match. It's using fixed match as fine tuning and sim CLR as the other component. So I'll talk about sim CLR. I've already talked about fixed match. So sim CLR is basically it attempts to distinguish between similar and dissimilar images. So we'll input two images and it will see whether it's the same or not. This is how it goes. And so this is the pipeline. So first part, as you can see, is the self-supervised pre-training on contrastive learning, which is sim CLR, which founds the similarity between the two images, and that is the basic pre-training part for this architecture. And the second, we have fixed match, which is the previous one, and we use transfer learning technique to use both the models, and which help us to increase the accuracy of the model. Next, I'll be discussing about a recent paper which used these methods on satellite images. So they have used fixed match and mixed match on different dataset. And this paper was developed by Google Research and Stanford University. So I just wanted to discuss about the paper, the results of the paper. So as you can see, we have 3 different datasets, and they have used different number of labels. So in the first, we have 10, 20, 50, 150, 500. They have gradually increased the number of label, and for they have compared with the mixed match and the fixed match accuracy. And with just around 100, they were getting around 0.75 for the first data set and 0.88 with the second data set. And they are just using the satellite images for this. So these semi-supervised learning are pretty strong, and we can utilize it for the detection. Next, so this is what I've done so far, and in the next few months and weeks, I'll be working on these steps. So the first thing is I'll be working on training the dataset using post and pre-hurricane images. And the second one is adding the oblique images and other details to the model, as we have around for a single building, we have around 5 images, 4 from the all the direction and 1 from the top, and similar for the pre and post hurricane. So for a single home, we have around 10 images. We have a lot of data in our case, so we'll be utilizing it, and we'll be training it on some deep learning architecture like SimCLR or semi fixed match. And the next step will be to estimate the damage loss estimation, to estimate the damage loss in dollars. So it will be like you're inputting a building and you're telling like how much is it damaged. So if we can predict the damage amount, it will be very easier to build a framework for equitable resource allocation so that low income people do not get penalized. That is the ultimate aim of this project. So thank you. And any questions?
Yeah, even I have a question. That you are inputting images from a certain location.
Mm-hmm.
So your model will be working for that location.
Okay, so that's a very good question. So as we are collecting, so all over the world, buildings basically look same. If they have doors, windows, and so we'll be training it on different hurricanes. As I showed in my slides, we have dataset from Hurricane Harvey, Maria, and Michael. So the purpose of training it on different dataset is to generalize the model so that it can be used later for our future disaster or any hurricane. That is our purpose. So it will be generalized. We can use it for other places as well.
Small question.
Mhm.
So can the oblique data set also predict the interior damage, or it's just exterior damage of the structure?
So oblique, for now, we do not have the images from inside because we'll be taking from aircraft, and that will count for auto damages as well. But if you see after a hurricane hits, the major portion will be, it will target only the walls, windows, and all. And for now, I can give you an example. During these COVID times, the FEMA basically asked people to use their cameras and then scan and give the photos so that they can inspect. So it's like that. Any questions from online people? I guess there are no more questions.